The stewardess was laughing at the man, but she didn't know it was Keanu Reeves. When the truth came out, the woman decided to flirt. Keanu Reeves' response impressed everyone. Friends, let us know in the comments under what conditions you watched this video. In the background, while working, or during lunch. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow another emotional story will be waiting for you. Snow hadn't yet melted on the concrete of the Zurich runway when droplets splashed from the wheels of a black Mercedes, pulling up to the entrance of the private terminal. Inside, it was silent, nearly sterile. The lounge looked like it had been cut out of a catalog of the ideal future. Snow-white sofas, a gleaming wall of chrome plaques, marble floors, and cold lighting that made everything feel even more distant. The air smelled of champagne, luxury perfume, and an unspoken undertone. You either belong here or you don't. Keanu Reeves stood in the far corner of the lounge. His black athletic jacket, hoodie, worn-out jeans, and a backpack slung over one shoulder contrasted sharply with the glossy ambiance, like a slice of bread on a silver platter. His eyes looked a bit tired, but not irritated, only calm. The kind of calm you only find in someone who long ago made peace with people being the way they are. He held a paper cup of coffee and quietly observed as a waiter poured champagne into flutes for a group of businessmen in the corner. Their watches were expensive, their silk ties Italian, their conversations centered around labels and investments. Keanu didn't listen, but he saw it all. The performative importance, the hypnotic confidence that the world was theirs. He looked away and took a sip. The door slid open with a soft hiss. From the corridor walked in Lana, a flight attendant from the fleet of private jets operated by Aurum Air. She looked flawless, her uniform pressed to razor-sharp perfection, crimson lipstick glistening like lacquer, her dark skin glowing with a warm caramel hue against the cold backdrop of the lounge. Tight braids tied into a bun framed a striking face, equal parts beauty and restrained superiority. Lana knew how to carry herself, and she knew it. Her gaze swept across the room. She spotted him immediately, a man standing quietly aside, unlike any client she'd served before. No suit, no branded sunglasses, no laptop or assistant whispering a schedule, just a man. In simple clothes. She judged him quickly, far too quickly. A driver for one of the passengers, maybe security, she thought. Her smile remained intact, but a flash of subtle irony ran through her eyes. She walked up to the check-in desk, exchanged a few words with the administrator, but kept glancing at him from the corner of her eye. Keanu, meanwhile, took his time. He walked over to the window, looking out at the runway, where another private jet moved slowly behind the glass. He paid no mind to the stares, no reaction to being sized up. His presence carried a kind of quiet depth that couldn't be explained by appearances. But Lana wasn't looking for depth. Her world was structured. There were classes. First, the jet owners, investors, heirs of empires. Second, the staff who served them. And below that, the accidental visitors, outsiders, like this man in sneakers. She walked with confidence, her back straight, heels echoing against the marble like a metronome of determination. As she passed him, radiating professional detachment, her stride seemed to say, "I know who matters here." But she had no idea that soon, her confidence would transform into something entirely different. While Lana clarified a few details with the captain who had just arrived, her gaze returned to Keanu. He still stood calmly by the window, holding his coffee with both hands, watching the planes move. He wasn't interested in whispers or posturing. He was already somewhere others were still trying to reach, and not in the geographical sense. And because she didn't see that, this story was destined to become a lesson. For her, for those who look without truly seeing, for everyone who forgets. Appearances are just wrapping paper, and the most precious things never need to announce themselves. This was just the beginning. Keanu stood by the window, watching a private jet taxi slowly against the gray sky when he heard footsteps. Steady, deliberate, echoing off the marble floor of the terminal like the ticking of an impatient clock. Lana came to a halt directly in front of him. Her face wore a smile that might have seemed polite at first glance, but her eyes told another story. Curiosity, skepticism, and an undercurrent that clearly read, "Let's find out what you're doing here." "Excuse me, sir," she said in a soft, almost condescending tone, like one might use with a child. "This area is for private flight clients only. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Keanu turned to her without changing his calm expression. He leaned forward slightly, as if to make sure his response didn't sound defensive. "Yes, I'm waiting for my flight," he answered briefly but politely. That threw her off. She had expected hesitation, some excuse, maybe even a flustered apology. But instead, calm, certainty, and something in his voice that made her spine tighten just a little. "Okay," she drew the word out as if thinking aloud. "It's just, we usually see a different kind of client here. You're not on our list, at least not yet." Her smile stayed, but the tone of her voice had changed, now edged with subtle condescension. She looked at him from head to toe, scrutinizing every detail of his appearance. Her eyes silently asked the question she didn't voice. "Who are you to be standing here among people who own the world?" Keanu didn't respond. He didn't look away, nor did he try to explain himself. His silence acted like armor. Her words bounced off without leaving a mark. For a moment, Lana faltered, but she quickly recovered. Taking a step back, she gave him the same professional smile and turned to walk toward the captain who had just entered the lounge. She walked with the same straight posture, but there was something different in her gait now. It lacked the lightness it had before. As she approached the captain, a silver-haired man with perfect posture and a leather folder tucked under one arm, she exchanged a few words, her voice softening into a playful tone. She touched his shoulder lightly, joked, as she had with dozens of VIP clients and colleagues before. "Hey, the guy by the window," she said casually. "Who is he anyway?" "Looks kind of out of place here." The captain gave her a knowing smile and leaned in. His reply was nearly inaudible, but unmistakably clear. And then, for just a moment, Lana froze. Her smile vanished from her face like someone had turned off a light switch. She turned her head over her shoulder, back to the man who still stood by the window, with that same calm look on his face, as if he were waiting not for a plane, but for stillness. Her eyes widened slightly. Something stirred in her chest. Doubt, surprise, and something quickly morphing into a heavy tension inside. What did I just do? The spiral stairs leading up to the jet glimmered under the ceiling lights of the hangar. Lana walked ahead, still composed, but noticeably less certain. She was doing her job, professionally. As always, a flight schedule tablet in hand, a silk scarf in the company's colors resting on her shoulder. But with every step closer to the plane, her confident stride began to lose its chill. The moment she entered the Gulfstream cabin, time seemed to pause. The interior was like something out of a dream, better, even, than most presidential suites. Cream leather seats, polished rosewood paneling, gold-plated fixtures, cashmere blankets, and an immaculately set dining table. Every detail screamed luxury, without ever needing to raise its voice. Her eyes widened. She stood still, caught in the fantasy of how the ultra-elite must live. Her mouth went dry, hands trembling ever so slightly. She turned slowly, as if trying to convince herself this was real. She'd seen plenty. Princes, actors, oil tycoons. But this jet, it felt like all of them rolled into one. And the craziest part, she still didn't know who owned it. Then, footsteps behind her. She turned. Keanu entered the cabin, calm, unbothered. The same man she had just dismissed as an outsider in the VIP lounge. He walked past her like a man arriving home. Lana froze. The shock in her eyes was instant, though she tried to hide it. "This is your jet?" she blurted, still clinging to a professional tone. The captain, now behind her, stopped and looked at her with a respectful nod. "Yes, Mr. Reeves is the sole passenger on this flight." The moment hung in the air. The silence that followed was heavier than any explanation. Lana's brain seemed to reboot. She blinked, her mouth opened slightly, but she quickly composed herself. Her posture softened, her voice turned tender. She was back in the game, but the rules had changed. "Apologies for my earlier tone," she said, flashing a soft smile. "We're sometimes required to double-check everyone. It's truly a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Reeves. I'm Lana. I'll be serving you today." She leaned forward slightly, a subtle gesture of openness. Her smile had changed, no longer polite professionalism, but something warmer, flirtatious. The same eyes that had sized him up earlier now lingered on his face, his hands, his eyes. "Would you like something fresh? We have Chateau Margaux, or perhaps champagne, if that's more your taste." Keanu placed his backpack by the seat, looked up, and gave a small nod. "Water will be perfect. Thank you." "Of course. Whatever you prefer," she replied, her voice smoother than the leather upholstery. She gave the cabin one more sweeping glance, this time with the stunned realization that this world, this floating palace, belonged to him. And perhaps, if she had looked deeper earlier, she might have seen it coming. But now she saw just one thing. Her client was the very man she had tried to humiliate. And now, she served him. In every sense of the word. The flight began smoothly, like a perfectly choreographed scene from a film. No jolts, no turbulence. The jet cut through the clouds, and inside the cabin, a near-theatrical silence reigned. Lana returned with a tray, and instead of water, it carried a crystal glass filled with ruby-colored wine. She approached Keanu with a smile that now carried a completely different tone. Still polite, but now softer, warmer, almost playful. "I thought, maybe you wouldn't mind a glass of red." Her voice was a whisper, gentle and deliberate. She leaned in a bit closer than necessary. Her hair brushed lightly against his shoulder. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, warm, exotic, with notes of amber. Her hand, with long red nails, touched his palm as she passed him the glass, as if it wasn't a drink, but an invitation. Keanu accepted the wine, but didn't sip. He stared straight ahead, while Lana watched him. "Where are you flying, if you don't mind me asking?" she said, taking the liberty to sit across from him, something she definitely wasn't supposed to do. "Sicily," he replied calmly. "Oh, I've always dreamed of going there. White sand, the sea, the sun? Do you go often?" Her eyes sparkled. Her voice danced with a tone of curiosity. She leaned forward slightly, as if the conversation was becoming more intimate with every word. She paused for a moment, hesitating. Then she said it anyway. "Honestly, I didn't recognize you. But now I see you're very special." Keanu turned his head toward her. His eyes were calm, free of any visible emotion. Just silent presence. He didn't break eye contact. And in that silence, she suddenly felt something tighten in her chest. Shame, or maybe the anxious weight of realization. "Interesting," he said quietly, finally. How luxury and a private jet suddenly change everything, don't you think? Lana faltered. She tried to smile, but there was something in his eyes that was too real, too clear. She suddenly felt exposed, as though every gesture, every word she had said, had been seen through, broken down into fragments. I just, she began, but the words caught in her throat. She looked away and stood up, adjusting her uniform. Sorry, I might have overstepped. It's just, we don't get guests like you every day, she said with a forced tone, trying to regain composure. Keanu said nothing. He turned back to the window, watching clouds drift past a glowing sun, and took a sip of the wine. It was excellent. But his silence said more than any response ever could. Lana slowly made her way to the crew cabin. Her footsteps no longer echoed with confidence. She could feel it. He saw right through her. And what she saw in his eyes made her feel like someone entirely different from the confident woman who had first boarded this plane. Someone far less sure of who she really was. The plane's wheels touched down with a soft screech, as if reality itself confirmed that this journey was nearing its end. Inside the cabin, silence. Lana stood by the door, watching as Keanu slowly gathered his backpack, adjusted his jacket, and rose from his seat with unhurried grace. For the first time during the entire flight, she stepped forward to assist, not because she had to, but because something inside her had changed. Without a word, she extended her hand, lightly touching Keanu's shoulder. Hesitant, careful, hoping the gesture wouldn't be rejected. He looked at her. His gaze was the same as before, calm, deep, free of judgment, but with the weight of someone who already understood everything. I hope I'll get to be on your crew again someday, she said softly, her smile more like an apology than an invitation. Keanu paused. He looked at her for a few quiet seconds, then replied in the same voice he used for the things that mattered most. Maybe. Or maybe not. People need to learn to see more than just what's on the surface. The words hung in the air, heavy as stone, sharp as a blade. Lana didn't answer. Something shimmered in her eyes, but she wouldn't let it fall. She just nodded, slowly, almost to herself. Keanu turned, walked past her, opened the cabin door, and descended the stairs. The sun was shining straight into his path, and as he moved away, his silhouette looked taller than everything she knew about power, wealth, or success. He walked with ease, with freedom, and she remained in silence, alone, in a cabin that just a few hours ago had felt like the peak of her career. But now, those gold handles, soft leather, silver, and champagne felt meaningless, because inside her, there was only silence and a hollowness that comes when you realize you didn't just misjudge someone, you never saw the person at all. And that emptiness was more terrifying than any turbulence in the sky. In this story, many will recognize themselves, in Lana's behavior and in Keanu's silence. Too often, we judge people by the clothes they wear or the roles they appear to play, instead of seeing who they truly are. We assume without knowing. We dismiss without understanding who we're really dealing with. But sometimes, all it takes is one look, one quiet thank you, to realize that greatness doesn't always shine, and true strength isn't found in money or status, but in staying dignified even when others treat you without dignity. This story is a reminder. Kindness doesn't need a business card. Respect has no dress code. And sometimes, silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. Let's be the ones who see the heart, not the label on the suit. Because that's how the world changes. One glance at a time, and one apology we'll never need to say. Be sure to share your impressions of the story in the comments, and write what conclusions you have drawn after listening to it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and I wish you all a good mood and see you in the new video tomorrow.